Ready, set, secure.
Hey everybody, welcome back again. This is Hutch with Inside the Mind of a Hacker. In this video, we're going to be talking about a very specific type of phishing attack, and specifically the type of phishing attacks called credential harvesting. And so what credential harvesting is an attacker will send an email to a target and entice a target to go to a website that looks like an authentic website in order to get that user to enter their credentials and then thereby acquire those credentials to use for nefarious purposes. So let's quickly look at what a traditional credential harvesting attack looks like. First, the attacker sends an email to the victim, and that email is intended to entice the victim to visit the malicious cloned site. The victim then clicks on the link, goes to that cloned site, enters their credentials. Because that cloned site is actually controlled by the attacker then receives those credentials from the malicious site and then uses them at any time thereafter to log into the actual site. So the industry's response to these traditional types of credential harvesting attacks was to move forward to multi-factor authentication. And so multi-factor authentication is basically a combination of any of these types of authentication factors. Something you know, such as a password or passcode, something you have, which would be something that you physically have possession of, or something that you are, such as biometrics, retinal scanners, fingerprints, facial recognition, etc. So the most common form of multi-factor authentication when used on the web is one-time pass-based multi-factor authentication. You'll have something like this, which is an app that consistently changes a code every 30 seconds. And whenever you log in with both your username and password, and then also you supply that valid code that's valid for 30 seconds to the actual website. As effective as this control may seem, the reality is attackers are actually getting around multi-factor authentication on a regular basis using session instantiation in order to create a session in real time and then acquiring access to that session. So let's look at how attackers have adapted this traditional credential harvesting attack in order to compensate for new multi-factor authentication controls and being able to circumvent those two. So very similar to the original attack, the attacker starts by sending an email to a victim in order to get that victim to browse to the malicious clone site. The victim then clicks the link, goes to the clone site, and enters their credentials. And this time, when I say enters their credentials, I mean enters their username and password. And also, that clone site has logic that it will also prompt them for the multi-factor authentication token. Now, this is where things go a little bit different. The malicious clone app actually has logic running on the back end that while it receives, in real time, when it receives those authentication credentials, both the multi-factor authentication token and the password, it replays them in real time to the actual website, establishes a legitimate authenticated session, and then they just take the session tokens from that session and load them up in their browser in order to assume the compromised session of the victim. The best solution for solving for these real-time replay session instantiation attacks is to use a good cryptographic alternative to the traditional one-time pass-based multi-factor authentication. And the specific standard that I found accomplishes this the best is the FIDO, or Fast Identity Online specification. And this is a specification that is an open specification that's been subscribed to and been pushed by multiple different technology leaders, and has also been now adopted by pretty much all of your different multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, or IAM vendors. So definitely something worth looking into and considering a migration towards. And if that is not on the roadmap immediately for your organization, then we also made some other recommendations for better hardening traditional forms of one-time pass-based multi-factor authentication in a blog that we recently put out called How to MFA the Right Way. So we will include a link for that in the show notes, and thank you for joining, and we'll see you for the next video.